That's what the Celtics looked like down the stretch last night against the Warriors. Pure nonsense. Oh my God, I was in a time machine. It was right back to the 2022 NBA Finals. I've been talking a lot about the Twilight Zone recently and how into that show I am, um, but which is very topical. It started in 1959, the year the Dodgers beat the White Sox in the World Series. Anyway, it felt like the Twilight Zone. It felt like we were right back in 2022. I'm like, what am I missing here? There's no Klay Thompson on the other end. Draymond Green is even a shell of what he was 2 years ago, but that's where we were. We were like with like 4 or 5 minutes left, and texting one of my friends during the game, and I was like, I know the script. Steph Curry's about to go nuclear. This is the 2022 Finals. Now, he didn't really go nuclear. He obviously had a very good game, but he didn't do what he did in that Finals. But that's what it was, man. They just fell apart down the stretch. They're throwing the ball over the place. They were not getting the key stops. I mean, that's what it was. 118 to 112 is the final, and the Celtics just did not make the stops. The Warriors had the answer every time. It was an absolute time machine, a time warp. Let's do the time warp again. The Rocky Horror Picture Show that was the Celtics and Warriors last night. And I told this to you, Scotty, yesterday. We were talking about the revenge aspect. Obviously, that was a big part of it. The big overlying headline of that game was the revenge that Jayson Tatum was going to get on Steve Kerr. And I was thinking, like, well, not thinking, I said it out loud. Like, how are they going to react to things like this? Jaylen Brown obviously did not play in this game for an injury. But, like, how is Tatum going to respond to this revenge aspect of things? Is he going to try and do too much and get the Celtics out of their game? Is he going to have that Mamba mentality that he wants so bad? How's it going to go? And weirdly, we got an in between. Tatum had a good game. He scored 32. I think he only had 2 in the fourth quarter, though, which was not great. But I don't think it was like because that Tatum was going ISO and taking fadeaways and taking contested shots or anything like that. So he played a good enough game. The Celtics were just not the Celtics at all last night. And big credit of that goes to Golden State, by the way. I have been hearing about this Warriors defense and how it was different, and we saw it to a national TV audience last night. I was talking about how this national audience would be huge for all the Celtics narratives, but in fact, it helps out the Warriors big time because there's the rumors of Golden State having this top 5 defense potentially in the NBA this year. They showed it last night, and they're already in those metrics. I think it was number 2 versus number 4 teams in defense, and they blitzed the hell out of everything. We are seeing a completely new Warrior strategy, which is fascinating to me. Now, the Warriors' defense in those championship teams was a little underrated. They were a pretty good defensive team, not a great defensive team, and they were known for their offense and the way they revolutionized things. But much like the Celtics now, who are known for their offense and revolutionizing things, they're pretty good defensive teams. And this iteration of the Warriors that I saw last night are a better defensive team than what they've had in years past when they were winning NBA championships. Now, the talent level is not as good as those championship teams, but the defense is better. And I found it pretty interesting, by the way, early in this game, Buddy Hield hit a couple threes off the bench. Buddy Hield leads the NBA in three-pointers off the bench. And the broadcast was just marveling at it. Breen, Jay Billis, Doris Burke, specifically Doris, they were like, she was like, oh my God, he's been such a good three-point shooter this year. What a benefit. You know, such an elite three-point shooter this season. I'm like, Buddy Hield's been one of the best three-point shooters on the planet for a decade now. Like, I guess because we saw him in college, he was incredible. But like, he has been a damn good shooter his whole career. He's played on some shitty teams, and I guess that's why we lose him in the fold. But those numbers have not changed, man. He has been a 40-45% three-point shooter his whole career. He's been that good. And he's a big-time asset for them, mainly offensively. But the other guys, they've bought in defensively. And they, by the way, speaking of defense in this game, the Celtics just dared Draymond to shoot a couple threes. Dared him. And like there was one where Pritchard just totally went off him. He had an elbow three, and Pritchard's just doubling the guy who's closest to him. And there was one in the final minute that he gets a corner three wide open. Nobody's near him. And so he finally takes it. It's like an air ball. Maybe it grazes the front rim, and Golden State gets an offensive rebound and scores. And then Draymond has like the free throws to put it away, to make it a 4-point game. And he's like shushing the crowd. And I'm like, man, that's what's so frustrating. Just like the finals. It's just like 22. Draymond didn't do shit to help his team win that game. And he gets the last laugh, as he should. I mean, right? He hits the free throw to make it a 4-point game, ends this thing, and shushes the crowd. You know, it's different when Steph is hitting these back-breaking threes and putting the crowd to sleep. You know, that's one thing. But Draymond is doing nothing out there. They're daring him to shoot threes, and they're right to. But he gets the win. And the Warriors prove something, man. They have proven the last couple of years after winning that 22 title that they are a proud franchise that is not just going to blow this thing up. They're going to scratch and claw to play in postseason basketball, and maybe number 30 will go nuclear, and that'll win them a series potentially. That's like the best case scenario for them. And they showed a lot of grit, a lot of toughness, a lot of heart of a champion, all that bullshit last night. Because, you know, we talked about it from the aspect of Jayson Tatum revenge game, Steve Kerr, and the way the Celtics always measure themselves against the Warriors, even last year when they were a much better team. But we failed to look at it from the Warriors standpoint. They hear the shit they're talking about Steve Kerr. They hear their coach getting booed in the pregame introductions. And they're a team that has, you know, some of those guys have 4 championship rings. A couple of them have a championship ring as well outside of those guys, outside of Curry and Green. They're not just going to go down easy. And they're thinking of this game as national TV, NBA champions, they're building. Why not us, man? Why aren't they talking about us? And they went in there and got a big-time win. They should be celebrating it. It reminds me of what we were talking about yesterday with when the Warriors were at their peak, when the Celtics would go into Oracle and win. And that was a big-time statement. 2016, ending that home winning streak. 2017, they won there as well. 2017-18, this one was at the Garden. They held the Warriors under 90 points. Like, those were big-time statement wins for a Celtics team that was not really championship caliber yet. And now flash forward it to 2024, November of 24, the Celtics are championship caliber. They're the defending champs. The Warriors are not. And it's Golden State turning the tables. How the turntables. It felt just like that finals, man. Oh, I was getting bad flashbacks because the Warriors brought it defensively. They were outplaying the Celtics the whole first half. They had a double-digit lead at halftime, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, it was 51-40 at halftime. 40 points for the Celtics at halftime. They get that in the first quarter, like every night they get 40. 40 to the first half, 16 second quarter points. What the hell? So that felt like a finals game in 22. Warriors kind of came out the stronger team, and then the Celtics figured it out, and they got things going. And they really kind of had the game where they wanted it in the fourth quarter. They were up 7 about midway through the fourth quarter with all the momentum. I think it was 95-88. And then they just fell apart down the stretch. Fell apart. 95-88, and they end up giving up 118. It was just like it, man. And Curry had a couple of those threes where I was just like, I was almost doing it to myself, man. Just putting myself to bed. Obviously, it's November. Does it mean a lot? No. But But there is one game that you can point to if you're Joe Mazzulla and say, you know what? Forget the individual revenge bullshit of it all. And I know that Jayson Tatum, I don't think Tatum was like trying to go for 50. I don't think it was really detrimental to the team. I think his teammates wanted to win for him as well. But I think this is a lesson of just don't get wrapped up in all that. Like, just don't. We didn't get wrapped up in it last year when we could have all the time. And they ignored the outside noise all of last year. They didn't let themselves get too high, even though they were dominating the league. It's got to be that way again. They've got the blueprint for what it takes to win the title. They've got the psycho at coach to make sure that they stick to that blueprint. And this is a game that they'll point to later on in the season as just one where they got over, or not got over, but that set a mental bar for them. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say they got over the mental hurdle because they lost, but that's going to be one they point to later on when there's some other headline, some other bullshit brewing, and they ignore it, take care of business. They don't get bogged down in it. January 20th is when these two teams will play again. This is not one it's not as big as Celtics Knicks or maybe even Celtics Heat, but it's one that these players will get up for. That West Coast swing, which of course will include a game with the Lakers too. But this is going to be the one that the Celtics players circle because they know how big this one is. Anyway, we got to talk Bruins.
We are Rogue Media Sports.